disciples asked, Rabbi, who has sinned, this man or his parents, causing him to be born blind? Jesus said, you're asking the wrong question. You're not looking for someone to blame. There is no such cause and effect here. Look instead for what God can do. We need to be energetically at work for the one who sent me here, working while the sun shines, and when night falls, the day work is over. As long as I am in the world, there is plenty of light. I am the world's light.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sheila and the choir. Carol. Max Lucado writes in his book called God Came Near, for 51 years, Bob Eden was blind. He couldn't see a thing. His world was a black hall of sounds and smells. He felt his way through 5 decades of darkness, and then he could see. A skilled surgeon performed a complicated operation, and for the first time, Bob Eden had sight. He found it overwhelming. I never would have dreamed that yellow is so yellow, he exclaimed. I don't have the words. I'm amazed by yellow. But red is my favorite color. I can't believe red. I can see the shape of the moon, and I like nothing better than watching a jet plane flying across the sky, leaving a vapor trail. He said, of course, seeing the beautiful sunrises and sunsets, at night looking up at the sky and seeing the stars and the flashing light, you could never imagine how wonderful everything is. How many of us this morning have ever been in a situation where we could not see? I think back to a few years ago when I worked in a photograph company where I worked in a dark room. And when you went in that dark room, you could not see your hands in front of your face. You had to feel your way around to do the job. How many of us have ever been to a place that did a team building exercise where they put a blindfold on you and had someone else lead you through some obstacle? It's not a good place to be. It takes a lot of trust and confidence in the person that's doing that. And that's exactly what it's like for thousands of people who are blind. Imagine with me what it would be like never to see the sunset. Imagine for just a moment what it would be like never to see the faces of those you love. Imagine all that you would miss if you were never able to see the beauty of God's creation all around us in nature. Sherry read for us this morning, John 9, 1 through 4. The story and the context this morning really includes the whole chapter, but we're going to focus on the first 4 verses. Our text today gives the story of the Pharisees and how Jesus wanted to show them that he was indeed the Messiah, to bring them from the light of truth and out of the darkness in which they lived. The concern of the disciples in this text was who had sinned. Jesus points out that they're asking the wrong questions. He noted that they were looking for someone to blame when they needed to look to God for what he can do. In chapter 9, Jesus encounters a blind man, blind from birth, and he shares the light with the disciples. The first point is the blinding power of sin in our lives. The blinding power of sin in our lives. And I want you to just think about that for a moment. The disciples are looking at the blind man, and they're not seeing. In their blindness, they asked Jesus the wrong question. What his blindness was a result of. Was it his sin or was it his parents' sin? What is more, in the narrative, the healing is presented not as an act of restoration, but as a creative act of who the light of the world is. The man's blindness comes from birth, and it raises the ante with the ensuing miracle that's going to take place. And it makes it all the more striking. You see, in Palestine during those times, people who had disabilities were often brought to temples and sanctuaries and left there to beg and to be at the mercy of other people. Hopefully the passerbyers would be charitable and offer them a gift. The healing of the man born blind, in which had no connection between sin and the man's condition, is allowed to come to its climax with the criticism of those who think they can see. The Pharisees and disciples are blinded by what they see until Jesus enlightens them. That's the second point. Enlightened by the power of Jesus. The question comes to mind. What? Are we blind too? That's the question the disciples asked. They knew exactly what Jesus was saying to them. It's possible to have sight and yet be blind to what's going on around us. That's the context of what's going on with the disciples. The disciples of Jesus were blind by their own darkness in this situation. What they did was when they walked up to the man, they looked at the man and they asked Jesus a theological question. Rabbi, who sinned? The man or his parents that he was born blind? It was the Feast of the Tabernacle and the Feast of Dedication while Jesus was still in Jerusalem when this took place. It was the custom for the crippled to be brought to the temple and laid there. The disciples are asking the problem that many people ask. The problem of evil. Why does it occur? The rabbis had two answers for them. The Jewish rabbis gave two answers. One, well, there was some type of sin committed in the womb by the fetus that would have caused them to be born blind. You can think about that for a little while, ponder that. Or it was the iniquity of the fathers that was visited on the third and fourth generation. And they take that from Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. The form of the disciples' question reflected that debate. Who has sinned? This man or his parents that he was born blind? There's still much debate on the issue of human tragedy and suffering today. Many argue cause and effect. But in this context of this gospel, John casts the healing in terms of light and darkness. As Jesus is the light of the world, by fulfilling the Feast of the Tabernacle's symbolism, so he shows himself to be the light of the world by giving sight to the blind man. The world and the Jews with it lies in darkness. Whoever wanted to walk in light must come to Jesus. You see, there was no feast, no religious holiday, no religion that will bring us from darkness into light. The only way that any of us make it out of darkness into light is through a personal relationship with the light of the world, Jesus. Jesus had healed many blind people on many occasions. You can find other examples throughout the gospel. He doesn't deny the connection between sin and suffering, but he says it's not universal. It's not always the case. And in this instant, he insisted it was neither this man nor his parents' sin, but rather this had happened so that the work of God may be displayed in his life. Hey guys, you're wanting to know who sinned, and Jesus is saying this happened so that the work of God may be displayed in his